Our story begins with the main character named Shinhin waking up in a cave. His hands were scratched and bleeding. Folding himself into a ball, he forced himself to stare at the strange hologram. The protagonist has long forced himself to stare at the moment of the alternative world's demise. Suddenly, Shinhin fainted. As our hero lay unconscious, he had a dream in which he and his family were riding in a car. While traveling, he was involved in an accident in which only he and his sister survived. At the moment of the collision, Shinhin disappeared and then appeared in the cave where a book was lying a few meters away. Shinhin picked up a book, and after examining it, he saw that it was a martial arts book. After a while, the protagonist opened it and started reading. Suddenly, Shinhin woke up to a strange voice that said he had been trained. As soon as Shinhin saw the cave doors open, he immediately ran outside. After running out of the cave, the protagonist becomes very upset because he didn't see his home or his parents in front of him. He saw a strange town called Murim. Shinhin, sitting on his knees, started to get really angry and hit the cliff because he thought his torment was over. Suddenly, our hero was approached by someone. Turning his head around, the boy saw a man emerge from the same cave. In a trembling voice, he said he would have let Shinhin go, but his family was hungry. Standing with sword in hand, the man asked the protagonist or if he could give him his flesh. Such a situation alerted Shinhin, and after some time, the protagonist found himself at the foot of the mountain near the destroyed man. The guy was desperately trying to convince himself that he wasn't responsible for the man's death. After a while, Shinhin guessed that by destroying the man, he had raised his combat level. After that, he laughed. Our hero instinctively knew what to do. To get out of this universe, the protagonist decides to reach the maximum level in this world. Already after a very long time, Shinhin had changed a lot and was now fighting someone. Putting his sword to the warrior's throat, Shinhin asked the one who was the leader. The man did not manage to tell our hero everything because Shinhin began to remember all the past warriors who had attacked him. The main character looked at the battlefield and said that he was grateful to these guys for always looking for him. Unfortunately, that warrior couldn't make it out in one piece. Our hero destroyed it. Unexpectedly, the cult leader decides to attack our hero to avenge his comrade. Shinhin dodged each of the man's attacks. Parallel to that, he was talking to the leader. Catching the guy's mistake, Shinhin took him by the head. And then, our hero said he marveled at his bravery. The cult leader tried to get out of the grip, but his body wouldn't listen. To demonstrate his power and greatness, the protagonist used one technique that only intimidated the leader. Unexpectedly for the warrior, Shinhin let go of his head and kept him alive. Shinhin walked past the leader and told him to gain experience and once again come and entertain him. Sometime later at night, our hero fought that warrior again. As expected, he was stronger. In the midst of deep darkness, the protagonist sat under a tree and thought about how he could amuse himself. Looking at the moon, he realized for the umpteenth time that he had been living a boring life for 140 years. When Shinhin was thinking of ending his life, suddenly, a sign appeared. As it was later revealed, the protagonist had reached the highest level, and now he could return to Earth. Shinhin thought that someone felt sorry for him because a few seconds ago, he wanted to give up, or someone despised him. Standing up from his seat, Shinhin began to glow with blue fire. Along with his thoughts and accomplishments, he was slowly disappearing. There was chaos going on all around, because Shinhin was angry at the person who sent him here. He promised himself that he would definitely destroy that rascal, whoever he was. A few seconds later, the protagonist leaves this world. In 2011, in the woods, the goddess was reciting an incantation. A green portal opened in front of her. Folding her hands, the girl recited the final line of the spell. And in that instant, horrible monsters appeared in the empty portal. A lot of evil and scary monsters came out of the portal. In the year 2055, in the Red Wolf dungeon, there was a battle. A girl named Unsol saw that her comrade was in trouble. He was being chased by red wolves. One of them almost caught up with the defenseless guy. Unsol saw this and drew her arrow, and using her archery ability, she destroyed the monster with one shot. She jumped down from her position and went down to her comrade. The man thanked her for the rescue and was glad to be alive. Just as the guy finished thanking his leader, he was attacked from behind by a monster. After a few seconds, there was nothing left of the guy. On the battlefield, it was a common occurrence. All around, many helpless soldiers were being killed by the paws of monsters. There was no end to the monsters, and the girl's bow was about to break. Suddenly, Seol saw one of her soldiers running away and trying to survive, leaving his comrades behind. The girl desperately tried to call out to the guy, but he didn't even pay attention to her. Right now, Seol's main problem was the wolves surrounding her. The girl loaded her bow and decided to continue fighting. Junhyun ran away thinking he was on the wrong team, as most of the team had been destroyed. Running farther and farther away, the guy stumbles upon a strange portal that came out of nowhere. Suddenly, an arrow flew near the fighter and landed near his feet. This arrow was fired by Seol. All wounded, she walked up to the guy and asked the guy where he was going. Having come up with nothing, the fighter decides to justify himself and make up an excuse. But before he could say a word, he was grabbed by Seol's collar. She said in a gruff tone that he didn't belong on the battlefield. With tears in her eyes, Seol said that all these losses were because of him. Clenching my teeth, Junhyun decides not to humiliate himself in front of the girl. He breaks free from the girl's grip and says he doesn't care because he has to get out alive. Seol turned around and called the guy's name and told him to go back. The girl mentioned Jun's father and said she would watch his father turn a blind eye to the situation. The girl's words really pissed the guy off. He activated his powers and attacked her from behind. Unfortunately, Seol couldn't dodge or block the blow. That's why the guy hit her hard. The girl flew off a few meters, and landing, he lost consciousness. When Seol woke up, she saw Junhyun walk up to her, and taking her by the hair, he told her that she was worthless and weak. Next, the guy told his leader about an accident that only a few people knew about. Pressing the girl psychologically, Junhyun decides to destroy her. Raising his hand, he thanked the leader for everything. And then, out of the sky, lightning struck. As soon as the bright flash passed, the main character appeared at the impact site. As soon as Shinhyun realized that he had arrived in the real world, he immediately started laughing. Calming down, he said on an exhale that he would destroy whoever sent him to Murim. Suddenly, he was approached by Junhyun. He began to criticize our hero and ridicule what he said. Shinhyun walked past him without paying attention. After walking a few meters, the protagonist saw a girl lying down. After looking at everything in detail, he realized that there was a battle here, and the girl was about to leave this world. Junhyun was watching from the side. He really didn't like what was happening right now. The guy realized that if our hero guessed what happened here, then for Junhyun, this situation would be terrible. Junhyun decides to destroy the protagonist. He calls Shinhyun to get his attention. The protagonist didn't pay attention to him. He looked at the girl and was convinced that she was his sister. Junhyun realized that words against Shinhyun were useless, and so he decides to attack the protagonist from behind. Shinhyun stopped the attack with his strength. From these actions, our hero is not on a joke angry, because he realized that the girl was his sister. Shinhyun started talking to the guy. Our hero gave Junhyun his name, and in the blink of an eye, the protagonist, with a powerful beam, destroys his sister's abuser. After destroying the guy, our hero remembers his sister and what her name is. As Seol lost consciousness, she had a flashback. She remembered how she had cried as a child because she didn't want to leave the park. The parents, to get the girl to go, said they would leave her here overnight. And then, Shinhyun came up to her. He asked his sister if she liked amusement parks. The older brother decided to help the family. He said that if they didn't leave now, they would inconvenience the parents. This made the girl feel sadder. She thought that they would never see each other again when they got home. Shinhyun stroked his sister's head and told her not to worry. Putting his sister on his back, they walked to the car together. It turned out to be the cancerous day when the family was involved in a car accident. Seol blamed herself for this, because if she had gone right away, my parents wouldn't be dead, and my brother wouldn't have disappeared. Unseal woke up to someone starting to heal her. The girl opened her eyes abruptly and took a deep breath. After struggling to get up, Unseal asked our hero who he was. Shinhyan started telling her about the gift he gave her. It was a pendant with a picture of their family in the middle. Upon recognizing her brother, Unseal couldn't hold back her tears. Seeing this, Shinhyan hugged his sister and apologized for being gone for so long. Coming to her senses, Unseal flipped her brother off and immediately asked what happened to Junhyun. Our hero turned his head toward the destroyed guy and said he was no longer alive. Such news made the girl very wary. Grabbing her brother's hand, Unseal said that they urgently need to run away. After a while, the boys drove back home. Shinhyan looked around the apartment and realized that everything was the same as it was 14 years ago. Sitting on the couch, Unseal said with a tremor in her voice that they were in big trouble. After all, the guild director would come after her. That man was Junhyun's father. Once upon a time, he was a member of a criminal gang. He was also one of Korea's highly ranked hunters. Unseal was very afraid of this man. She thought he would be suspicious of her. To reassure his sister, the protagonist said that he just might have destroyed it. Standing up from the couch, the girl said that Song Jin was above the 50th level. After everything that had happened, Unseal couldn't find a place to be. After calming down, the sister asked her brother where he had been all this time. The protagonist paid no attention to her. He stood looking at a family photo in the form of a painting. From Unseal's words, Shinhyan realized that his parents were no longer alive. Afterward, the main character answers his sister's question. He briefly tells where he was and what he was doing, but after answering, Shinhyan started asking a lot of questions to his sister. So much information gave her a headache. To distract himself, Unseal decides to go deal with an urgent matter. Once the front door of the apartment slammed shut, Shinhyan went to further inspect the rooms of the apartment. Entering the hallway, the protagonist heard a sudden noise. Outside, someone used magic, kicked the door to the apartment, and 3 men appeared on the doorstep. It turned out to be Kong Jin. He immediately asked the guy where the girl was now. Unseal, meanwhile, was already outside the Dawn Guild. Getting out of the car, she immediately started waiting for her boss. While waiting by the car, Unseal was approached by another girl. That was Ji Hai. She's the deputy leader of the Dawn Guild. Looking at Unseal, the girl asked what happened to them. A chill ran through Unseal's body. The girl thought for a long time about whether or not she should tell what had happened. After all, Jin Hai was also strong as a leader. Clenching her fist, Unseal decides to tell everything that happened to her. The guild leader's actions made the protagonist angry. Pointing his finger at the leader, Shinhyan began to point out the manners and etiquette of the men. One of the subordinates of the leader wanted to fight with our hero, but he was stopped in time by Kong Jin. The leader was also on edge. He once again asked the guy where his sister was now. And then, our hero reveals that he was the one who destroyed his son. At these words, the leader became furious. The protagonist really liked the man's attitude. He was eager to see what the man could do. Without a second thought, Kong Jin began to attack Shinhyan. Our hero also decided not to stand still and take the fight. When Kong Jin made a punch, Shinhyan dodged it. In flight, our hero saw that his opponent's sword was imbued with a mysterious power. Previously, Shinhyan had fought a person with similar abilities. With a laugh, our hero decided that such a technique was worthy for training. Kong Jin couldn't calm down. He imbued the sword with power, began launching a series of attacks on the main character. Shinhyan dodged every attack from the man, and when Kong Jin caught a good moment, he stabbed our hero on the shoulder with his sword. But the man had in no way expected his opponent to stop such an attack with his bare hand. Kong Jin's comrades saw that. They immediately attacked Shinhyan. As soon as one of them tried to strike, Shinhyan dodged and told them to stay out of his way. Suddenly, the guy felt something that made him take this fight seriously. As it turned out, one of the servants of the leader used fire magic against our hero. The leader and his comrade watched from the sidelines. One of them thought our hero was finished. To make sure of it finally, the guy decides to deliver the final blow in the back. But despite the fire, Shinhyan was still alive. Moreover, he was able to block the sword attack. While holding the sword in his hands, Shin Hin clutched it, and with that, his blade sprinkled like a stone. And in that very second, the protagonist uses his power to make the swordsman retreat, shaking off the dust. Our hero turned to the calendar and looked at the date. After all, according to his sister, he had been gone for 14 years. Looking at his opponents, our hero assumed that the level of all three had reached apogee. And then, Shin Hyun thought for a moment. At this moment, he was comparing the level of people from this world and the other world. It was already evening. Eun Seol and Ji Hai were driving in the car. Eun Seol thought about why the deputy abruptly wanted to meet her brother. Back in the parking lot, the girl offered Eun Seol a deal in which Ji Hai would meet her brother. The terms were favorable, and so Eun Seol couldn't refuse. Unexpectedly, Ji Hai asked Eun Seol when her brother disappeared, and as soon as the deputy heard that our hero had been missing for 14 years, she was horrified. Ji Hai knew that those 14 years meant that our hero had been missing for 140 years. Next, the girls talked about the main character. Eun Seol talked about what he was like and what he did. The battle in the house continued. Shin Hin was interested in one servant who had extraordinary abilities. While our hero was trying to be attacked by another enemy, he was talking to that guy. As soon as the assailant from behind approached our hero, Shin Hyun punched him in the face and told him to stay out of the way. The magician Shin Hyun was talking to was very scared. Because of that, he activated his powers, and after a second, that mage started attacking the protagonist. But all those attacks were useless. Shin Hyun put a barrier on each of them, and then, with the same magic, the protagonist created ice dragons that were several thousand times taller than men. In the end, that mage was frozen. Of the surviving servants, the only one left was the guy with the shield. Like a little boy, he immediately started running away. He tried to get out of the apartment, but it turns out there was a barrier on all the exits. And in an instant, the servant was destroyed by magic to the head. Many comrades were falling before their boss's eyes. Kong Jin couldn't believe that all of his servants had been destroyed. And then, Shin Hyun approached him. He mockingly said the bandits had no loyalty. Kong Jin turned around, still unable to understand why the main character could use multiple techniques. And also, the man noticed that the apartment was not damaged at all from such attacks and blows. Shin Hyun told the leader that he had enveloped the area with a special technique. Afterward, our hero said the leader was on his property. These words infuriate Kong Jin, and he decides to take our hero with him to the other world. Under the manly shouts, Kong Jin activated the ability Berserk Blast. Seeing this, the protagonist was not surprised at all. He only thought that this act was madness, and in the instant after, the leader once again launched a series of attacks on Shin Hin. Fortunately, our hero was able to dodge each attack. To appease the leader, Shin Hyun decides to quickly destroy him. He takes the broken sword, and using his power, Shin Hyun destroys his opponent with a single sword strike. The attack our hero used was incredible, so the man was lucky to fall by his hand. After a while, the deputy and Eun Seol come to the house. Eun Seol was shocked to see what had happened here. In front of her, she saw her brother cleaning up the floor after the battle. Wringing out the cloth, Shin Hyun told the girl not to panic. There was a Sora between the brother and sister, with Ji Hai watching from the sidelines. Unexpectedly, Shin Hyun looked at Ji Hai. He sensed incredible strength and art in her. The girl, just the same, began to evaluate our hero. Later, when Eun Seol was asleep, she woke abruptly in a cold sweat. It was as if the girl was looking for something. Jumping out of the room, she started looking around and searching for something. A few seconds later, the girl was met in the hallway by the main character. Hearing her brother's voice, Eun Seol turned around abruptly. Shin Hyun, standing at the window, asked his sister, or she thought he was missing again. Eun Seol breathed a sigh of relief. She asked her brother why he was up so early. Distracted by his phone, Shin Hyun asked his sister to wait. Without saying anything, the guy left the house. The protagonist came out of the driveway. A car with a driver was waiting for him outside the house. It turned out that a week ago, back at the apartment, Jin Hai asked our hero for a meeting. After that, the men in black arrived and gathered the remnants of the principal and his subjects. My sister, watching from the balcony, saw the main character get into that car. After a while, our hero arrived at the restaurant where Jin Hai was already waiting for him. As soon as Shin Hyun saw the girl, he started telling her without greeting to remove her surveillance on him. To this, the girl only laughed and said it was security. The main character really liked the tea that was on his table. Jin Hai noticed this and said that this tea was very similar to the one in Yurima. Putting the tea on the table, the girl got down to business. She said that there were 3 other people who had returned from the other world. In that trio, there was the leader of the Twilight Guild. His name was Tae-hoon. The girl began to tell the same story that happened to our hero. How Tae-hoon opened his eyes in the cave, and beside him lay a book on martial arts. And when he crawled out of the cave, he found himself in the world known as Mirim. The girl assumed that their disappearances were somehow connected. The main character became curious about the girl back in this world. Jin Hai calmly said that she had returned here after her destruction. These words infuriated our hero. The girl could easily feel the guy's negative energy. The cup that Shin Hyun was holding began to crack due to his anger. The lad was amazed at the terms on which he came home. And then the protagonist remembers the goddess. Finally breaking the cup, Shin Hyun thought about how to find it. From what she saw, Jin Hai was a little frightened. After calming down, our hero asked the girl why she called him. After a few seconds of silence, Jin Hai suggested that the main character go for a walk. The protagonist, along with his girlfriend, came to the park. Standing under a tree, Jin Hai offered our hero to work for her, with favorable terms. At first, Shin Hai thought of agreeing, but as soon as he stopped joking, he said no. The reason for that was because he didn't want to work for someone weaker than him. And then, the girl decided to argue with the guy and see who would be stronger. As soon as our hero gave his consent, Jin Hai immediately used a spell. By firing it straight at the protagonist, the magic ball flew past him, and when it stopped, it began to expand to an unbelievable size. As it turned out, the girl created a special space in which she always had an advantage. Everything colored, in the blink of an eye, became gray and dark. From the outside, it looked like the guys just disappeared. 2 portals appeared near the girl's head. She pulled one knife out of each of them. In parallel, she told me that you could only exit the space when you won or lost. Such threats did not frighten our hero in any way, and as soon as Shin Hyun let his guard down, Jin Hai instantly attacked him. From this attack, the protagonist was easily able to dodge it. Jin Hai continued to throw a series of punches at the protagonist, but he fended them off with his bare hand. At one point, Jin Hai catches the guy when he's open-mouthed. She ran with all her and tried to throw a punch, but Shin Hyun was able to bounce back in time. After fighting the girl for only a few seconds, Shin Hyun realized what she was. Our hero said that back in Yurima, he had a chance to fight a similar opponent. To demonstrate his immense strength, the guy said he destroyed that opponent in a split second. Such words greatly disturbed Jin Hai. And then, our hero decides to let the girl use 3 different styles to defeat him. And if she succeeds, he will join her guild. Clutching your knives tightly, Jin Hai agrees to our hero's terms. Suddenly, portals appeared in the air, and from these portals, boulders began to fall. The protagonist also easily dodged them. Suddenly, all the rocks stopped. A second later, they turned around to the direction where Shin Hai was. The protagonist used his magic to stop the rocks from flying, and as soon as he landed, Jin Hai immediately began to attack again. This technique, like the others, was also useless. And then, magical spikes began to emerge from beneath the ground. While conjuring them, Jin Hai promised the guy that she would destroy him from this time on. After a while, all the spikes joined into one huge one. And so, by activating a special ability, the girl made her attack. A multitude of small and sharp spikes were heading straight for the protagonist as he stood motionless. Suddenly, the spikes collided with Shin Hyun and hit something, and a bright flash appeared in the air. The protagonist used his mind sword to cut all the spikes that were aimed at him. The shockwave from the sword caught even Jin Hee. Fortunately, our hero foresaw such a thing, and to protect the girl he placed a huge stone in front of her. And then, Jin Hai noticed that her body wasn't listening to her for some reason, and resigning herself to the fact that something was about to happen, The girl closed her eyes. And then Jin-hai appeared. He smashed a large rock at the end of the rock fall. Walking up to Jin-hai, Shin-hai asked her or if she wished to continue. After these words, the girl's hands trembled and she admitted defeat. After removing the dome, Jin-hai said that she wouldn't ask for another battle, but in return, she demanded an answer to one question. The girl asked our hero for one moment in the battle. Sitting down on the grass, the protagonist pointed out the girl's weaknesses and said that she was cocky. After talking some more, Jin-hai hid her knives and heard that our hero had agreed to her terms. But the guy had a request. He had to work as a freelancer, not as a partner. Hearing this, the girl agreed to our hero's terms. And lastly, she asked the protagonist to never join the Twilight Guild. Holding out his hand to the girl, he promised that he would fulfill all the conditions. Concerned about Shin-hai's nickname, Jin-hai shook our hero's hand. Unexpectedly, Shin-hai tore off the sleeve of his t-shirt to wrap the girl's wound. Holding out a piece of t-shirt, the guy apologized for the past. Jin-hai accepted the apology and said it was okay. Somewhere in the bushes, Jin-hai had a driver waiting. At the same second, Jin-hai got into his car. The worried driver asked her if she was okay. Remembering that battle, Jin-hai admitted defeat for the second time. The driver touched down and suggested that the girl invite our hero to the Sun Festival. Looking out the window, Jin-hai told the driver that she needed the protagonist for other purposes. She also said they would be doomed if they lost one. As soon as the protagonist returned home, on the doorstep, he was immediately met by his sister. The girl instantly threw herself into his arms. When Shin-hai tried to say something, Eun-seol, with an angry expression, told him to shut up. After calming down, Eun-seol asked her brother to never leave or do anything dangerous again. After stroking her sister's head, the protagonist told her that he understood her. Suddenly, Shin-hai confessed to his sister that he was becoming a hunter. Eun-seol didn't really like the guy's words. She changed her face and asked if Shin-hai wanted to leave this world. After a while, our hero pulled out a special cube from his pocket. With this cube, it was possible to get a hunter status window. Undeterred, Shin-hai picked it up to test its strength. After a couple seconds, the cube began to glow brightly, and after a couple of moments, the cube melted like ice and turned into a stump. Since this cube was given to him by Ji-hai, our hero thought she had tricked him. The sister recommended calling the status window, and so, calling up the status window, two windows appeared in front of the protagonist. On one side was Murima's status window, and on the other hand, the hunter status window of this world. Eun-seol walked up to our hero to see what class he was in. Seeing that Shin-hai didn't have a class, the girl rejoiced. She then proceeded to tell our hero about what types of classes there are. She belonged to the archer class. But since Shin-hai had no class, he remained an ordinary person. Eun-seol decided to make our hero abandon the idea of becoming a hunter. The girl started telling me that the hunter needed experience points to earn a level. A hunter with no class was supposed to get experience from cubes. But upon hearing the prices of these cubes, the protagonist was horrified. Hunters without a class had to spend states to earn experience. After finishing her story, Eun-seol asked her brother or if he had money. And then, our hero remembers that he had a sponsor, namely Jin-hai. If it wasn't for their alliance, the guy would be in trouble. The next day, the brother and sister came to empty Chayak. Seeing a creepy rabbit, Eun-seol immediately released an arrow at him. The girl was showing her skills to our hero. A red crystal appeared from the destroyed rabbit. Thanks to him, the guys were able to make good money. When Eun-seol finished her story about the stones, the main character was able to destroy several monsters with his powers. Eun-seol was telling her brother something, and saw that he wasn't listening to her. The girl looked at Shin-hai and saw how serious he was about something. Moments later, our hero grabbed his sister's hand, and then he said there was a better place nearby. Upon arriving at that place, a look of horror appeared on Eun-seol's face. In front of her, she saw a whole field of such rabid rabbits. Taking out the arrows, the girl was already thinking about how to deal with them, but she had no time to do anything, because she saw that our hero back jumped from the cliff directly to the rabbits. Flying down, drawing his sword, used a special technique to soften the blow. The main character landed in such a way that the ground beneath him cracked and a crater appeared beneath him. The rabbits saw the enemy and immediately changed into beasts. Suddenly, many system windows appeared in front of the protagonist's face. The system tried to teach our hero how to fence. He didn't like it and chopped her in half. The rabbits didn't wait long. They started attacking Shin Hyun with the whole crowd. The protagonist, one by one, destroyed these little monsters, and after a while, there were no rabbits left in that field. Instead, there were crystals. After the battle, the windows started appearing in front of the guy's face again. After reading the information on one of them, our hero was greatly surprised. But regardless, he still didn't understand what it meant. Not paying attention to the notifications, our hero began to study the system window. Eun-seol saw our hero pressing something. She went over to him and asked her brother what he was doing. Our hero didn't understand anything because he didn't know the interface language. Suddenly, the protagonist stumbles upon something. He asked his sister, or if he could get experience using the passive ability. Eun-seol answered in the affirmative. This pleased our hero greatly. Kneading his fists, he was clearly up to something. Suddenly, taking a stand, Shin Hyun made a powerful punch without magic. He decided to use martial arts to earn hunter experience points. Seeing her brother's flawless technique, Eun-seol's jaw dropped. Suddenly, the girl called out to her brother. She asked him to teach her martial arts. Because of the events that have transpired, she thought it might happen again. Placing a hand on his sister's shoulder, our hero agrees to help her. He warned his sister that he would be strict with her since he had no students before. Immediately afterward, our hero calmly turned around and told them to go to the next point. After a while, our hero and his sister ran together to the next location. There were rabbits sitting on one of the rocks, and they saw the boys running past, and after a second, they decided to attack them. Our hero saw this. He used his power to destroy the monsters in a split second. A moment later, the brother and sister were there. They were in a clearing where they were surrounded by rabbits. Suddenly, the main character realizes something and abruptly runs off somewhere. He jumped up and caught the attention of the rabbits. Seconds later, our hero activated his abilities, and with a bright blue flame, it shot straight at the monsters. After calming down, Shin Hyun, sitting on the grass, told his sister that he would become a mage. After all the battles, Shin Hyun was certain that there was a big difference between the two windows of information. Nurim's window displayed stats, and the hunter status window displayed absolutely everything. Our hero's life was very much like a game where he had to destroy monsters for experience points. And so, as the protagonist drifted off into contemplation, he realized that the being that sent him to Nurim was the god of heavenly war. With Jin Hai's support, our hero spent another month in the dungeons raising his level, and after a while, he reached the 22nd level of Hunter. As Eun-seol studied the different blood currents in the human body, she learned how to channel her inner arts. The boys meditated and practiced together for a long time. After realizing that Eun-seol was late in coming of age, Shin Hyun came up with one way: by hugging her sister. The guy with a smile on his face asked his sister not to hold back under any circumstances. Those words startled the girl a little, and at the same moment, from the window of our hero's house, his sister's unclean key flew out. On training day, the girl released the arrow with more force and energy. After a while, the protagonist met Jin Hai again. With a smile on her face, the girl motioned for the guy to start the conversation. While sipping tea, Shin Hyun asked Jin Hai or if she had some kind of plan. The girl, pushing the cup aside, suddenly approached the protagonist, asked him to go out with her. Hearing those words, the guy came to a standstill. He said it was his first invitation, and because of that, Jin Hai laughed. Standing up from her seat, Jin Hai began to talk about the newly discovered dungeon. Our hero guessed what the girl was up to. After that, he asked her the reason for it. The girl said that she was supposed to control particularly dangerous dungeons. Also, she wanted the main character to grow up as quickly as possible. Playing with the cup, Shin Hyun asked the girl what benefit she had gotten out of it. And then, Jin Hai started talking about the Sun Festival. It was an annual festival where two guilds fought each other in friendly combat. After hearing the whole truth about the festival, Our hero asked why everything was so violent. Jin Hai poured the tea and said it was all because of Tae-hoon. Because Dae-hoon wanted power. Unexpectedly, Jin Hai mentioned the heavenly god of war, and this made our hero very wary. Jumping up from his seat, the protagonist asked the girl if Dae-hoon had anything to do with this god. After the girl said that she didn't know anything about him herself, Shin Hein calmed down and sat down at the table. At the end of the conversation, Jin Hai asked our hero one last time to participate in the festival for her side. After a while, the guys walked up to the car where the driver was already waiting for them. After getting into the car, Jin Hai and Shin Hein continued to talk about the imbalance between the guilds. Mentioning the former guild director in the conversation, our hero was tortured by conscience. After analyzing the whole dialogue, our hero asked why the girl wanted to raise him as the strongest fighter. Jin Hai said the fights will be broadcast around the world, and so it would be difficult to prove that our hero had returned from Urim. And to attend the festival, the protagonist only needed the skills of a hunter. As soon as the girl caught the guy's eye, the driver immediately turned the car around, and they drove to the guild office. Upon arrival, Jin Hai gave our hero a whole suitcase of wizarding skills. Sitting at the table, our hero began to watch as the girl put a whole pile of papers on the table in a few seconds. These were the documents that Shin Hein had to sign. Examining one sheet, the guy saw that it said to create a name for his guild. The protagonist had to do everything to get the cube case. When he signed the paperwork to form the guild, Shin Hen didn't think long and named his guild Boundless. After all that paperwork, the guys finally went to the cave to destroy the monsters. There were many different kinds of creatures around, and Jin Hai was telling the guy to be careful of them. There were even some here who could fly. The protagonist didn't listen to the girl. He checked for monsters and immediately activated his abilities. And after only a few minutes, he went to fight alone against the monsters. Using thunder magic, the guy was striking at the flying monsters. Jin Hai was amazed at the strength and greatness of our hero. After Shin Hen had destroyed everyone, the girl told him that his mana could run out quickly. Not paying attention to it, our hero asked Jin He, or were there more monsters in the dungeon? After hearing a positive answer, our hero was eager to fight them. At the same moment, a man was sitting on the pier feeding the fish in the pond. It was the leader of the Twilight Guild. His servant approached him. The guy with glasses said that rumors had reached them that Jin Hai was acting suspiciously. Chiolho started reading the information from the papers, while the guild leader went about his business. Hearing the information, Dae-hoon wasn't too surprised by it. Chiolho continued to talk about what he had gotten. His paper told about our hero. When Dae-hoon got tired of listening to him, he ordered Chiolho to shut up. After hearing that, he asked the guy where our hero had disappeared 14 years later. To this question, Chiolho couldn't give an answer. No matter how much he searched, there was no answer. After adjusting his hat, the guild leader explained everything that had happened to Kong Jin. He guessed that Kong Jin was no longer alive. Dae-hoon also guessed that the main character was from Urim. After a while, Shin Hein was destroying evil monsters. Suddenly, he was approached by Jin Hai. The girl was surprised to see that our hero's mana supply never ran out. Our hero tried to explain to the girl how it was. He reminded her of the case of cubes. One of them was called the Life Force Exchange. Next, the protagonist explains to the girl that in Urima, he got an astral body, and because of it, he was able to use so much mana. After finishing the story, our hero leaves to deal with the smaller monsters. Jin Hai also didn't want to sit still. She took out the knives from the portals, and when I saw the first monster, she'd struck him down in the blink of an eye. To amuse herself, she decided to destroy flying monsters. With practically a single strike, she was able to destroy more than a dozen monsters at a time. Clinging to the mountain, Jin Hai looked around from above, jumping off a cliff. Along the way, the girl destroyed a few more flying monsters. She also landed on a high mountain, from where she could see almost the entire dungeon. Watching from above, Jin Hai saw more monsters approaching them, and then the girl sensed someone. A chill ran down her face and body. Looking up, she saw the paws and tail of a giant dragon, and there were several such monsters. The girl wondered why there were two bosses in the same dungeon, and so the dragon saw Jean Hai and immediately started attacking her. Unafraid, the girl pulled the knives from the portal. The dragon smelled danger and flapped its wings so that it was able to release a slashing attack. Such a phenomenon greatly puzzled Jean Hai. Just when Jean Hai thought she was finished, someone suddenly grabbed her and dragged her. That was our hero. He saved the girl from being killed. As it turned out, the guy was really looking forward to those two dragons to fight them. As soon as the guys landed, Shinhan asked what they were going to eat. Jean Hai said that she didn't care for it at such a moment. In that instant, the protagonist activated his powers to deal with who was now standing in front of him. Suddenly, Jean Hai saw many flying monsters gathering in the sky. Against these monsters, the protagonist went to fight alone. Watching our hero, Jean Hai saw something terrible. In the sky, she saw a green portal from which those dragons kept appearing. Jean Hai, smelling danger, immediately flew up and started running away. Flying in the air, the girl saw the protagonist surrounded by many monsters. Using her powers, she wanted to create a space from which they could escape. But against so many monsters, the girl's magic was powerless. Jean Hai desperately tried to call out to our hero, but he didn't hear her. After observing the monsters for a bit, Jean Hai realized that the small monsters were not acting out of their own free will. She guessed that the big monsters were leading them. After all, each of them blocked the attacks with themselves, protecting the boss. The girl also realized that the fight wouldn't be over if they didn't deal with the bosses. Looking up, Jean Hai hoped that our hero could handle everything. Continuing to watch, Jean Hai saw one of the monsters flying very low. After a while, she was already sitting on his back. And luckily, he didn't notice her. Just as he was looking at the huge ball behind, another monster flew at her. And at the same moment, he crashed into Jean Hai and threw her off the dragon. In the air, the girl flipped over, and in flight, she saw another monster. Pulling out a knife, she lunged at him. Jean Hai saw that the boss was approaching her, and immediately jumped off the dragon and flew towards the boss. Using the technique, she tried to throw a punch, but then, out of nowhere, a blue glow appeared. As it turned out, it was our hero. He was tired of having fun with monsters, and poetically, he decided to deal with them quickly. Jean Hai could see the astounding power of the astral body in person. The protagonist, stopping his jokes, immediately pointed thousands of swords directly at the dragons. All of them, one by one, were killed by Shinhan. And after a few minutes, instead of large and intimidating dragons, only crystals remained on the battlefield. Upon the destruction of the boss, our hero fell out an unusual purple stone. The guy approached the girl and asked her what she knew about this crystal. Jean Hai revealed that it was the stone of the monster's skills. Right after that, Jean Hai turned to our hero and said that she had something to say. A month later, on the streets of the city, everyone was already discussing the upcoming festival. Some high school students were discussing our hero's debut. Shinhyun had already become an internet star. Cheolho heard the guys talking. He was sweating and scared for some reason. Upon entering the office, he was immediately yelled at by his boss. He was not happy with the news that his subordinate had brought him. Suddenly, the head of the guild approached the principal. "He's drinking a drink and sitting in a chair. Asked the man to sit down." Then, the head stood up and said that they had to destroy our hero. Cheolho sat waiting nervously for someone in the cafe. A few seconds later, the man was waiting for comes into the cafe. As it turns out, Cheolho's guest was the main character. Shinhan looked at his interlocutor and realized that he had nothing to do here. But despite the man's foolish appearance, Shinhan decides to shake his hand to start a conversation. After the greetings, the men sat down at the table. Cheolho clumsily started pulling out documents from his folder. After a few seconds, Shinhan's interlocutor took out a soundproofing device. And as soon as Cheolho pressed the button, an invisible barrier appeared around the guys that blocked out all outside noise. Once the noise was gone, Cheolho calmed down. Then he said that the Twilight Guild wanted our hero to join them. Our hero expected this. He said that he had already cooperated with the Dawn Guild. Cheolho started to throw sweat again. He said he knew it all. Next, after laying out the facts, Cheolho again offers to join their guild. But just as our hero promised, he said no. Right after that, Shinhan got up and left the meeting place. When he left, he said that he was rejecting any offer. To save the situation, Cheolho decides to catch up with our hero to get his attention, but it was useless. At that moment, he was asked over the radio how long he would be standing there. As it turned out, the guild leader was watching from the side. He walked over to his subordinate, and with a hug, he told him to stretch the dialogue as long as possible. And as it turned out, Cheolho failed in this task. The leader thought his audition was a waste. Once outside, the protagonist called Jean Hai to tell her what had happened. Shin Hyun said that as soon as he entered the cafe, he felt Park Toon open the outer key. After talking business some more, our hero is distracted by Eun Seol. She asked the guy to put the phone away and go with her. The protagonist did just that. A few minutes later, the boys arrived at the cemetery to see their parents. When Eun Seol came to the altar, she let out a tear and told her parents that our hero had returned. At the same time, Shin Hyun stood motionlessly behind his sister. Unfortunately, as expected, he felt nothing at the sight of the photo of his relatives. He was very different from what he used to be. He couldn't shed a tear now. Even if he shows his careless side, it wouldn't be good for Eun Seol. A window appeared in the air asking how this was possible. Why Cha Shin-hyung was still human. The one doesn't realize what nonsense just happened. What kind of person we're talking about. The window asks why the protagonist can't just calm down. If he needs motivation, it's willing to help with that. The guy says he still hasn't changed, and then asks who the hell he is. Is it some kind of heavenly god of war? The unknown interlocutor replies that he is ready to take everything from the protagonist again. He should only wait. Then the guy replied, he doesn't know what this man is, and what he wants from him. But if he tries to do it, the hero is ready to tear him to pieces. The window left its final message, that the heroes need only wait, and then it dissolved. The boy was alone, and one thought entered his head. He reflected on the only thing he had left. And at that moment the girl with tears in her eyes turned around. She realized that in all this time, he hadn't even followed her. Then she sent him away. The time is moved to a few days later. The commentator Yara shouts into the microphone that this day has come. Yara's boyfriend tells him how big a day it is for the hunters, that they want to get into the dungeon. He pounded on the table and yelled that they would continue without any delay. And then the commentator said that today is a grand event for all of Korea. The Grand Sunny Festival has finally begun. At this time, the festival gives hunters unity and their communities a truce. In addition, ordinary people can observe the work of hunters with their own eyes. The guy standing there in the tracksuit says it looks so grand it's like the World Olympics. The girl with her mother-in-law next to her agreed. She said that for the public in particular, the hunters are the most interesting. She added that the hunters are like superheroes to kids, that they can use different abilities. But there's another hidden reason for holding it. It is held to give the hunter a friendlier impression to the common people. But something weird is going on. It's like the guy isn't listening to her and is looking somewhere else. The girl guessed that the main character had a fight with team leader Cha Eun Seol. She then remarked that even when they arrived at the arena, there was some tension felt between them. The girl told the protagonist to tell her everything immediately, since she already guesses that he probably did something stupid. And after that, she was thrown off balance by an unexpected question, a guy asking for help finding a place to live in a quiet and secluded place. He told her he'd gotten a message from the Murim status window. He doesn't know his purpose, but the celestial god of war clearly wants something from the guy and will come after him. The guy explained that he didn't know how well he would hold up against him, and if Eun Seol was around, she would be in danger. The girl even lost her balance hearing all this. She needed time to digest it. And then she said it was a strange move to go to distances away from her sister for her safety. The guy turned away and said the girl didn't need an older brother like him. That's exactly what she said. Someone she knew and hoped to see was long gone. Afterward, the guy said it would probably be better if things were the way they were, but he wasn't allowed to finish. She suddenly slapped his chest to bring him to his senses. The girl says she doesn't want to get involved in their mortal strife, but if he was her brother, she'd definitely hit him for that. Then she remarks that the protagonist knows less about her sister than she does. She wanted to explain, but they were interrupted by a man who was looking for the guild vice team. Even though he caught the two of them in such an awkward pose, he still informed them that the event was about to begin. The girl told her assistant that knocking is basic etiquette, and let the protagonist not go anywhere and wait for her here. Then the realization came to the guy that, in fact, he had just been punished. The commentators grandly announce that there will be an opening ceremony before the festival begins. The point is that the heads, Dawn and Dusk, will come out to greet each other. After that, Clava of two different heliums began to take the stage. It turns out they started at the same time from different times, and now they're facing each other. The man smiles cynically and holds out his hand to the girl, which makes her very angry. But she has to smile, and she also asks if the man is doing well. She said that the kid who had once served as her replacement had grown up quite a bit. He replied as he heard you try the girl was also quite busy grooming the newcomers. Afterwards he said that this time, he was ready to get rid of all the excess with his own hands as well, and he doesn't realize he's keeping the girl from going forward. The girl grinned and said she'd read it as a compliment. In the shower called the person she was talking to a fucking bastard. And then they shook hands, thus marking the beginning of the Sun Festival. Furious battles began to take place in the arena. The man standing Scorpion attacked the shield bearer with a sequential strike technique. He, in his turn, could not withstand such pressure and gave a slackness. And then the latter brought his kopie over his head and pierced his opponent. That's what the commentators said, though the weapons were specially blunted for such battles. But the Copionoso was able to wound his opponent badly. The heads of the guilds watched the battles from a special place. One supervisor cynically assesses that his subordinate has been fiddling with his rival for too long. He needed to stand back up, and when he got up, he said he hoped his opponent would be able to entertain him in the next few rounds. The girl only glared angrily after him. He stepped behind the columns where the vice leader was waiting for him, standing at the ready with his sword. He asked when the moment would come when he could kill Li Jihee. The ringleader told the guy to relax and informed him that the time was almost here. And then he remembered the leader of the enemy team, named Cha Eun-seol. We were then moved to the archery survival arena, and the commenter said that seeing the best archers from both factions is very much worth it. The second commenter mentioned that the girl named Cha Eun-seol is the one he's rooting for the most. He said she was young and promising, but she had recently had an unpleasant incident in the Red Wolves dungeon. People were whispering behind her back. They were discussing how she had killed one of her subordinates. They were saying enough quiet, but the girl heard everything. She shouted, "Why doesn't the man say everything to her face and be a coward?" After that, the guy pissed his pants and started to slowly make his way out of the room. Only when the girl was alone did she manage to exhale quietly. She recalls not even saying a word to her brother after that day. Since then, she gets very angry when she thinks about it, even though she's actually very sad because the guy is avoiding her. Her thoughts were interrupted by an assistant who informed her that someone was waiting for her in the waiting room. The girl was perplexed as to who could be waiting for her here, and in a moment, there was a glimmer in her soul. Could this really be her brother? Of course not. It was the team's vice leader who came to support her. The protagonist's sister asked what happened to the vice leader before the tournament started. She replied that she just wanted to support a prospective contestant and actually wanted to go in with Shinhyun. But unfortunately, he's disappeared. She continued, in her opinion it would be better if the two just resolved any misunderstandings between them. The girl was angry. She asked since when did she pry into the personal affairs of guild members. She replied that she was just worried about these YRS as their sponsor, and that's it. Cha Eun-seol only laughed when she heard that. After that she said that all this time she did not like the boss. It seemed to her that she controlled her brother and pushed him wherever she wanted. After all, if you think about it, he only decided to become a hunter after meeting the vice leader. She clenched her teeth and mouthed that taking shouldn't have become a hunter. She doesn't understand what her brother is trying to accomplish by becoming a hunter. He's chasing some goal, and she doesn't even know anything about it. Tears well up in her eyes, and she says it's as if her brother is no longer her brother and has become very distant from her. After that, a loudspeaker announced that the archery competition would begin in a minute, and everyone needed to make their way to the arena. The girl wiped her tears, gathered her courage and apologized to her boss for showing such a side of herself. The supervisor said the guy probably didn't want to change like that himself, and she herself has experienced similar suffering as Shin Hyuncher. She talked about how he went to hell, where he could die every second and spent a huge amount of time alone, from which he couldn't get out for a long period of time. And all he does is he just doesn't want to show that side of himself to his sister. The girl stopped. She said how strange it was. Why should one have to price for asking to collect on behalf of the guild leader? Doesn't he think the girl is unreliable? Unlike them, with whom he was on short notice, after those words, the girl simply turned around and left for the arena. The guild's vice leader is alone, and after a while, she noticed a man following her. It was the main character. The girl thought he had disappeared somewhere, but he was here all along. She noticed that the guy was talking like he didn't want to see her, but he was worried about his little sister. But the guy started to deny it and said that he was just passing by. Hearing all this, the vice leader took in a chest of air and gave out. How much he annoys her. He's actually no worse than Pak Taehyun. She grabbed the protagonist by the scruff of the neck and shouted why he just couldn't be honest. His sister was no longer the child he remembered. Does he really think hiding his true intentions from his sister is the right thing to do? After that, she asked the guy to follow her. She said she was about to point the guy in the direction of his little sister that he didn't know about. And then a shot was fired from a flare gun. A flash of bright yellow light lit up above the arena. Thus began the repulsive competition within the Archer Survival Arena. At some point, all 6 teams from dawn and dusk would collide in one place. The leader of the Twilight faction is overseeing all of this. He's really curious about what's about to happen, the specifics of whether even Hyuk will like what he's prepared. As part of this competition, team members talk to each other using small wireless headphones. The protagonist's sister is informed that her team has detected the enemy 200 meters away from them. She was having a hard time concentrating. Memories of that conversation with the guild vice leader were in her mind. Out of anger, she even slammed her hand against the concrete, crumbling it. She doesn't understand if it's so hard for a guy to tell her his true intentions. The girl was told that the opponent was out of attack range, but she didn't care at this moment. She said that she had no problems with aiming, but they started to discourage her, saying that it is impossible to hit the target from 300 meters with a training bow. The girl was told again to wait for reinforcements, but she wasn't interested. She said she'd take out the hostiles right away, and then prepared to attack regardless of the danger. Team leader Cha Eun-seol used the skill sniper shot. By the time the enemy scout spotted the arrow, it was too late. It hit him right in the heart, and in doing so, knocked one opponent out of the game. The commenters then reported that he was no longer incapacitated and out of the game, while the girl was praised for the lucky shot. Glancing at her target, the girl mouthed to make sure her brother never looked down on her again. We were transported back in time where little Jang Eun-seol sat near the wall in a morning dress. The adults whispered how unlucky I was to lose my parents so abruptly, with no relatives to care for her. In the end, they couldn't even find the body or her older brother. The girl was sure that in fact her older brother, whom she always called Appa, was still there, and would soon appear in front of her. All this time she had been praying, and believing wholeheartedly in her pleas. After that, something strange happened. On the TV there was an image of some woman who said that very soon hell would descend on the earth. The strange figure in the white cape continued, and said that the purpose of this is that humanity must evolve. The girl, so at all inside, did not understand what was happening, whether the TV is broken. But it was not so. It was not long before a revelation fell on mankind. Goddesses, dungeon monsters. The girl offered to pray and believe that her brother would return, but time passed. After a few years she passed the hunter's test and was placed in the archery class. And after accepting the state, she ended up in a hunting academy where she was bullied by her peers in every way possible. The girl tapped the table with her spoon and wondered if the bully was just jealous. The one started yelling that they pay a lot of money to attend the academy, and this fool got in for free. But he was not allowed to finish, for a food tray flew across his face. The girl then shrieked that if these things were so jealous of her, then let them become orphans first, and then they would open their mouths later. Someone in the crowd called her rabid, and then he had to face her real face in anger. So she graduated from the academy, after which she was found by the top guild Dawn, and the girl began to go on various dangerous missions. In one such quest, she is left alone in the woods and is attacked by a monstrous wolf. But she wasn't ready to die so easily and managed to reach for the arrowhead and then stuck it in the monster's head. According to her, she had suffered too long to die like that. Immediately afterward, Jang Eun-seol was followed by the girl, who would later become the guild's vice leader. But as it turned out, backup was no longer needed. The girl with pink hair asked if she was new, and Jang Eun-seol said she was. The vice leader then said that the girl gives the impression of a person with burning eyes, and when you are a great future awaits her. Then she latched onto Lee Jiha and ended up becoming the youngest leader of the Archers Guild. But this was disliked by a great many within the association, and so were the main things that were not so easy. The whole point was that she just wanted to get stronger in order to survive. All those days without her big brother had put a lot of pressure on the girl, and so there was nothing left for her to do but train until she lost her pulse. And the girl just snapped at herself time and time again. She pulled out the pendant she'd been wearing around her neck all this time, with a picture of her family on it. She said something is wrong now. If you compare her to her older brother, who is good at all martial arts, it's like she's missing something. She shrieked into the air that she wouldn't forgive the protagonist for treating her like a child. It was only after a few seconds that she realized what she had just done. Shouting something at the top of your voice while being together, in which there could be danger from everywhere, was a very stupid move. She grabbed her ear transmitter and started yelling that she needed to reposition herself and get settled in her new place. But for some reason, at this point, no one answered her, and then, suddenly, there was an attack. The strongest hail of aloe blood arrows rained down on the girl, and she almost managed to get back from everyone, but the last one pierced her shoulder. After that, a ceasefire order came from somewhere far away. The enemy group spotted the target. The girl picked up on something very strange. Her muscles were not hurt, but her skin was pierced. How could that be possible if all arrowheads had to be blunted for the tournament? These people you tracked her down are using real, live arrows for some reason.
God, I'm begging you, save the fucking world and not who they think I am. I'm not devil. The story begins with the protagonist unable to realize who he is, where he is, and what's wrong with his eyes. Your Majesty, what has happened to me? Who could have done this? A queen with huge breasts appears. She replies, "It's all right. Why are you using magic to destroy the raging flames?" The prince replies, "So I can use magic. What's going on here, sir? You're being uncultured, you're not well strange. I don't think she's speaking my language, but why do I understand her then? My God, no, it's me. Where's Mr.? What's wrong? Mr.? She hugs him. He's asking a very strange question about the guard unit. Why do I see some writing above her head? She has horns, almost like real horns. Shit, I've got it. Cassandra rises, appears. Some spirits to our master and watch your language. Who the hell are you? Why is there some unknown writing above her head? The guard says that now is the key moment of the war. You can't back out now because of the blow. God, what strange sounds. What is actually going on here? Asked the prince. He tries very hard to remember what happened and what happened 15 seconds ago. My head is just bursting with pain. Can't remember anything. My lord, you're all right? Pay no attention to me. At any opportunity to remember something, his head starts to hurt. Where am I? How did I get here? I can't figure out what body I'm in. The guard cannot understand who is standing in front of him. If you look closely, you can understand that this is not some kind of rally. And what happened to him? Was he badly hurt? Don't talk nonsense. Our Lord won the Great War. My soul was transferred into the body of some great and important person. My lord, we can't waste time, we need to go on the offensive. What did you say to do with this archangel? Since they strongly consider me their master, it is not necessary for our fire to deviate from their idea that they obey me. Show the way, I will follow you. That's right, my lord. Welcome, my lord, to our family. We were waiting for you very much after the Great War. I cannot believe it. Incarnate all the demons and they all completely obey me. My lord, our squad is ready to attack. Ready to attack. You just have to finish him off, and you can attack the Holy Land. What are you even talking about? How can I afford this? The great beauty kneels and says thank you. We will all go with you. At this time, the master looks at the commander and says that the most beautiful woman on earth. She is the commander of the Red Demon Army. She is such a beauty. She suits me perfectly. I even got excited. Our master, we will all follow you, show respect for you. So forward to the offensive, to the war. There is a huge rock ahead. I am afraid of heights. I can't get off it. I'm starting to fear I will have to jump from this cliff. What we see is a huge horde that wants to step on us. Our dragons must protect us. Bloodthirsty zombies just appeared on the battlefield. Everyone screams to attack. The dragons flew into the sky and began to burn everyone in a row with fire. Oh, our lord, how are your legs? How did you get off from the cliff? Why are they shaking so much? I can't understand what kind of pain is starting. The great battle of the two worlds between the Lord and the Prince and the greatest zombies is not scheduled. Impaled. Miranda, the mistress of light darkness, there can be no one I see. This is the same seraphim whom I once defeated. Now, we have to kill him. How can I get to him among this large crowd? Fly terribly bowed my head up. I saw that the ruler has wings. It can't be where they could have come from. I just can't believe in this thing. Once upon a time I would have wings, and I could take off from the ground. She is the commander of the Red Demon Army. She is such a beauty. She suits me perfectly. I even got excited. Our master, we will all follow. You show respect for you. So forward, to the offensive, to the war. There's a huge rock ahead. I'm afraid of heights. I can't get off it. I'm starting to fear I will have to jump from this cliff. What we see is a huge horde that wants to step on us. Our dragons must protect us. Bloodthirsty zombies just appeared on the battlefield. Everyone screams to attack. The dragons flew into the sky and began to burn everyone in a row with fire. Oh, our lord, how are your legs? How did you get off from the cliff? Why are they shaking so much? I can't understand what kind of pain is starting. The great battle of the two worlds between the Lord and the Prince and the greatest zombies is not scheduled. Impaled Miranda, the mistress of light darkness. There can be no one I see. This is the same seraphim whom I once defeated. Now, we have to kill him. How can I get to him among this large crowd? Fly terribly bowed my head up. I saw that the ruler has wings. It can't be where they could have come from. I just can't believe in this thing. Once upon a time I would have wings and I could take off from the ground. Sir, can you fly? Where did your wings come from? I can't believe it myself. Perhaps God himself gave me these wings. The prince took off and jumped on his shoulder. The giantess greeted the prince. It would be an honor for me to see you off, Medina. The great and wild giant is the commander of the 15th Corps of the Demon Army and the 9th level squad of wild single souls. Thank you, giant, for letting me down to earth, and I am very grateful to you. Now I can easily overthrow the seraph. And so the battle begins. All my heroes behind their backs also descend from this mountain. Don't come near us, did Sebastian. Oh no, how did you get down that huge mountain? Our overlord, hanging on swords, can't move. I see these people are very weak. Even a few thousand of these people will not be able to defeat us. So we will easily win this war. Are they afraid of me? Can we talk to you or not? Warriors, today we will meet our death. Gasoline, Prince, and Pancake, fight to the last drop of blood on this battlefield. Let's fight not for life, but to the death. Some numbers appeared inside the heads. Their number has already exceeded 1,000. They can die at least 100 times, but they don't care. To the Overlord, you will be just miserable little ants. Hey, don't talk to us like that. Accept your death and shed your blood on this battlefield. Why do they attack so fast? The Great War began. A great burden overtook the prince. The warriors constantly had some kind of incomprehensible voice in their heads. What it is, what is happening to us? The prince must use fire barrier to repel the enemies. But how can I do that? I don't have it. Just try. The prince inflicts an incredible blow with fire on enemies. It can't be. Our prince was hit. Our Lord VK. And then the unexpected happens. The man woke up and ended up at the school Olympiad. Everyone around started laughing, and our main character is in the hospital. The mother of our heroine wrote to her to go to the store and buy beautiful flowers. Then a guy plays with a sword, runs out into the street. He is sharply knocked down by a large truck. It cannot be. Was I really hit by a car? Am I in hell and looking at it all from the side? I died means indeed I'm looking at hell. Terrible wars. Began to call the woman. Cassandra, why are you staring at our master? So better help him. Oh no, our lord. Did you get hurt? Let me help you stop the wounds. Yes, I was badly injured, but for some reason, and surprisingly, the wounds do not hurt. Spirit, help me get home and heal from the wound. Well, I can't. We cannot help you. The master of ours, who cannot touch, for he has incredible strength from pain. At this time Seraphim lies on the island of the sword. Why do I see a huge number above his head? He must be incredibly strong. Why can't you quickly turn into someone else? I don't want to hurt anyone. So that's your name, warrior? Why do I see and hear these voices all the time, and they are very familiar to me? For a huge amount of time this war went on. You did not fight without a single rest and shed more and more flesh. Unfortunately, we lost. God saved this world. So it turns out that your voice is in my head. It was you who called me here. What are you saying, our Lord? Where did he call you? What voice do you hear? Maybe he just asks for forgiveness from his opponent. Seraphim was one of the few warriors who could resist our prince, and was able to fight to the end. Prince, I don't know where you came from, but I can definitely say that the Lord will transfer you to my body so that you save this mortal world. It is cruel opponents. What other world? What are you even talking about here? Am I a savior? Our spirits, our ancestors, have been fighting for millennia. We need some kind of savior, and for this you were sent from high heaven to help all the inhabitants of this valley find a peaceful world. In a good army there are enough chosen and cunning traitors who do not obey our command. The demonic army has a Grand Duke, but saving the great people is one of the main tasks. But for some reason, I believe we prince that it was the Lord who chose your soul and sent to us. It is you who must commit those deeds that have been committed for decades. Well, I can't believe it. I'm just an ordinary student. How can I do something? The Holy Spirit still support me and help me, but my soul will soon burst and fly to heaven. Please help me, set me free. Do your best. What can I do? It can't just be torn to shreds right now. You look at our master? He looks and does nothing. He just wants to laugh at him to make him hurt even more. What are you doing, Prince? Why are you torturing our master? We need to restart this war. Well, we're in a really bad place. Our army has already lost a lot of strength. Our prince thought too long and took too long to decide. Their wars began to gain new strength in the attack. The prince begins to draw his sword. I acquire incredible strength. Sebastian dies. But how could this happen? His wounds suddenly begin to chew. Thank you, Prince. I believe that it was the Lord who chose you. You are the one who can save this world. What is happening to me? What kind of energy appears in me? The holy energy entered me inside into my flesh. Because you didn't use the defense, you get stronger and stronger. What is this happening to me? Who are you? I am your flame that is in your soul. How can I cleanse my body? It looks like it's on fire now. I'm incredibly hurt. If you can't handle that energy, you need to release it. Avenged all his ancestors? And use all your energy to cleanse. Well, how can I do? How can I do that? If I fail, only you have the knowledge that our Lord gave you. Only you can manage it. Try to hear your thoughts explore along the way. Trust your thoughts. How can they even do that? How did a huge explosion occur in terms of war? They saw a bright light, and were very surprised. A huge explosion occurred. The prince gained incredible power. All wars died in this war. A huge fee appeared that burned all foreign soldiers. What was it? How could this happen? That's all I did. Victory long live. Completely destroyed the enemy. This question cannot be. I can't believe my eyes. I still can't believe it, that I am the head of this army, that I am the supreme commander of the army of demons. I really ask you to follow your thoughts and help save this mortal world. My lord, you have already done enough damage to this world. How are you going to live with it? I just can't do what I did again this time. I must tell everyone to inform all our armies that we must retreat. What is it? What are you up there on the mountain? Can't be. This is the sound for an offensive warrior in a frenzy. Why are they attacking? Who gave them this order? We had a completely different plan. It was necessary to finish off the general of the enemy army and advance on the city. Why are they attacking now? I didn't give anything. Who made this strange sound? From a distance they saw a huge dragon, and on the dragon was the great queen, who looked at it all from the side. It was he who did all this horror. It was this prince who turned our warriors into ashes. I cannot believe this. On the first day of my arrival in this hell world, I reduced it to ashes. Since then, the mountain has turned into a sea of ash. And it's all thanks to my hands. I can't believe it. I'm not devil. Part 2 is the sacred city, which is many thousands of years old, destroyed overnight. Shattered ruins, flying dragons, fire, screaming people. It was all in this city. When we went there, we saw many fallen soldiers. Is this what we have created? Is this what I made with my own hands? Can't be. It hurts me a lot to look at this. I knew she was so cruel, but I don't think it's that bad. She's even worse than I imagined. My God, what happened to you? I felt a little sick when I saw these fallen warriors. This is all I have done. It's all mine and dirty hands and thoughts. But our Lord, you did such incredible things a long time ago that terrified us, and now you see this little thing and wonder how this can be. Scenes like this shouldn't surprise you. Are you telling me something? A voice comes from afar. Save! A great dragon attacks an ordinary warrior. Hurt. Scream. Grab him. Rip it apart. The poor warrior leaves this world sleeping in soul. Everyone scoffs at the fact that the dragon grabbed this little warrior and he is far away because of this light. Buena scoffs at what the dragon has done. Incredible horror. There are more ordinary people. Let's grab them. Do you not understand me? It quickly runs away. Otherwise, the same thing will happen to you as with this warrior. What are you doing? Why are you commanding before our majesty? He sees everything. Pardon, my lord. My deed deserves the most severe punishment. I will no longer waste my time and energy on this. What kind of savages we have our warriors. Do you know what I'll tell you? You are doing your job well. Scary. Do you have money with you? Set it aside for me. I want to make a bet with them. Can you grab this girl in 5 minutes, your majesty? Well, how can one seize not only a girl in such a short time, and you offer us to seize this little unprecedented woman? Are you playing my wars with us? You have captured the largest city in this world in a couple of days, and now I suggest that you go to an innocent woman. For this, I thank you very much. Well, your majesty, we will follow your orders. Oh, you freak this prince. Servant, you must help me win this bet. I give you one last try. Otherwise, I want your son. Run away or I will. A beautiful woman appears and invokes a time-of-flight love spell. How long will she run away? The guards go after an innocent woman and try to catch up with her. You will not get away from us. She is doomed and will probably send an execution, that's for sure. A love spell turned an innocent woman into a great heroine. She got tremendous speed and love in her eyes. She pulled away, otherwise run away at the speed of light. How can this happen? This can't be. Things are bad. They start to rush very quickly. The guards don't understand what them to do. Mark the time. They will never catch up with her in her life. Her son is the last to yell, "Beware, Mom!" A huge dragon flies behind. It begins to shorten, and the dragon cannot grab it. The guardians are simply perplexed as to how this can happen. What strength, what power this girl acquires. How did she get away from us? Suddenly, he receives a huge blow and crashes into the guards, and an innocent woman calmly runs away. That this huge dragon attacks her again, and she inflicts an invincible blow on the dragon. Everyone was just in shock. Your Majesty has passed more than 5 minutes. My subordinate seems to have amazing powers. There are 2 of you, and you couldn't even go to one girl. Open my eyes to the world. No, Your Majesty. She had a huge power, and we could not grab her. If you made a bet with me only, and know how to lose, now you will bring him a great punishment. Since you participated so successfully, captured the cities, then I will not punish you too much. All these prisoners are no longer your merit to let them go. Did you understand my instruction? Yes, my lord. We will do whatever you order. Mom returned to her son alive and unharmed. The mistress thought something incredible. He launched a huge force of fire and released it into this woman. It can't be Mom. She began to climb with a huge flame. The boy breaks out of the servants. I cannot believe. Who was that? What is this fire? Your Majesty called me. I was chasing one very important foam. Tell Your Majesty you didn't notice her? A huge silhouette of the god of fire appears. Who is this? He is a very dangerous species. Is this my subordinate, one of the commanders? You are higher than His Majesty. The great god of fire worships the prince, and does not understand where he gets such anger and impudence from. How dare you touch my toy? Your Majesty, what an audacity! I was just chasing a very important prisoner when I ran into you with a fireball, and so I decided to use a snap. Couldn't resist showing you how powerful my ability is. Can't be where you got them from? What a cool firewall. Your Majesty, why are you upset that I did something wrong? Yes, sure. How could you do that? With her, I have an idea. That boy over there. Let's get him. What are you doing? Do not do this. Does your hand hurt a lot? And why are you hurt by such a small fireball in me? Hello, are you sick, Your Majesty? I beg your pardon? I hurt your hand. What the hell are you talking about? Such a small fire won't hurt me. This is so His Majesty is the strongest master in the whole world. This arm lives very fast, so I can't believe the luck that my fireball technique is so strong. Exactly. I remembered that very challenge. Even if it were peacetime, I would not have dared to challenge him. Today, very strange forces reign here, especially after the fight with the Seraph. What is he doing? What is our prince doing? This behavior is not like him at all. Although that unexpected surge of power really hit everyone. It was incredible power. He is the most incredible. There was nothing else like the forces and the deities accumulated in 2 tiers. Everyone says that the power of the 2 tiers of a deity is unimaginable. Is this miraculous artifact somehow affecting me? I am already silent about the fact that now the prince has lost to me, which means I can inflict wounds on him. And my current position in the army of demons. Well, Volkov is afraid not to go into the forest. Your Majesty, I will be grateful for any guidance. There is a fire protection huge explosion. The prince repels this force and a large shield appears. Great Fire God pushes back means fire barrier is a strong technique. My fire blade technique has gotten stronger, right? Well, the blade pierced right through. How is this possible? What could have happened? It hurts me a lot. I defend myself very slowly. If this continues, we subordinates will no longer respect me to her here at all. And when did I have time to delve into this pain so deeply? This god of fire burned this innocent woman, so I must avenge her. Great god of fire, ever-burning flames. I want to tell you something. Before that battle with the wars, Seraphim, my mind was damaged. I suddenly realized that now there is nothing at all I remember. I don't know what happened to me then, and what is happening now. The real power of the stars. After all, they will help me. Your opponent is nothing compared to you. I'm not devil. Part 3. Also, nature has its own energy. Usually living creatures of the bureaucracy go beyond the perception of natural energy. It is called the systemic energy of mankind. About the soul is the ability of synthesis to pass the energy received by nature through the channels of sensory perception. Theoretically, the higher the threshold, the stronger it is. The first people divided into 6 large systems: the star energy system, the life energy system, the purgatory system, the element system, the death system, and the mind system. A very rare ordinary ability can comprehend only a small part of the system. However, you are able to visit the 4 soul procs: purgatory, elementals, death, and mind. It can be said, my lord, that you have an incredible gift that the Lord God has endowed you with. Now is the time to tell about it. And then, how can I fix it? A huge strong blow of fiery darkness flies out in the prince. It can't be, my lord. What kind of blow was it? It turns out that it was done by the fiery god, who has fiery power. What the hell are you doing, did I guess? He is really strange today. Our prince is really weakened. Well, if this time you help, then this time the prince will finally lose the remnants of his reputation. Above the Grand Duke, incomprehensible lights appeared with symbols. It turns out that these were his passive skills from the system of death, the spirits of blood and flesh. One had only to take damage. These incomprehensible spirits immediately healed our prince, so it was impossible to kill him. What's it like? One more time you're going to do? You're going to recover. Can I give you some opportunity? The great wars attacked the prince again. He acts but thinks he will kill me. The prince has a huge fire barrier. An incredible explosion happens, loser. You just scratched me. I'm not even tired. The barrier releases very slowly. The last word will be only the master of yourself. Still your master of the great god of fire. Hands start shaking again. Apparently my body is afraid of being a Grand Duke. However, he said that he would fight with all his strength. He had never said such phrases before, so something is wrong. I cannot defeat him. Gets a huge hard hit, and repelled many thousands of meters. It's scary. I hope he's sane. What did they just do? The fire barrier can block an attack, so it can also get off with a weapon. The Grand Duke says that he lost a lot of memory a long time ago. Even if I had a large reserve of magic, I would not be able to use it. If I lose, then what will happen to me next? What will happen to me? The sun god who is preparing to attack the prince. It can't be. This is a huge supreme fireball throwing technique. The fire barrier will not withstand. What should I do? I didn't seek death. What the hell are you doing here? Happens. It's a huge hit, and the sun god throws out a huge prince's fire scarf. There are a lot of explosions, waves of light and fire. I don't understand what's going on. Why the hell isn't he breathing? I hit right on target. Plus, it's like he's just succumbing to me. And then a huge warrior appears behind the prince, who lived 1,000 years ago. Too pompous, my warrior. I'm going to give you a good job. You must attack the fire god to overthrow him in the end. And now comes the long-awaited battle between the greatest warrior who lived 1,000 years ago on this planet and the huge god of fire. Warlord Blacksmith, Demon Meteor Iron Rusty Dragon. A lot of precious materials are needed to summon such a high-class creature. Why take yourself seriously? Your subordinates can only exchange magic experience with you. God of Fire, you tried to kill me. I'll kill you. You will get for everything you've done to me lately. Wait, how to use demons? I surrender to you, it can't be. What the hell? The great warrior struck with the tremendous power of the God of Fire, and he flew far straight into the ground. He suffered a severe defeat against the Prince of Darkness. And this concludes the third part of the chapter. Part 4, I'm a Not Devil. There was a prince on the high mountain. He is asked what His Majesty is doing there. Everyone is waiting for him to meet, organized in honor of the victory in the Great War. Guardian says, "Don't you think His Majesty is not himself today? Although he usually doesn't command his respect for someone all of a sudden for the sake of one human child. What the hell is he doing?" But suddenly today our prince behaved like he never killed everyone in a row. Garda, and you are very curious today. And what has happened up to this point, you guard? Despite all the words and deeds, His Majesty always translated reasonable guesses. And today you began to doubt His Majesty. Are you saying something like that? Why are you blaming me? I couldn't even think about it. You know, as long as he is in the place of the prince, he will always be my master. I will always respect and support him. What the hell? Today I feel that our prince, but I'm a girl. You must treat us well. The Grand Duke is on a mountain and looks at the moon. Why is she somehow strange? Voices are heard from below, sir. What did you say? Nothing. Just today I feel that everything is real. I don't understand. Today our Lord is really cool. In that situation you were able to summon a demon, which requires basic possession of demonic power to summon. This does not depend on the level. I sincerely admire you, but you can't return the spent ones, so I'm a little sorry. By the way, for some reason, at the last moment, he didn't let me defeat Yukon. I really feel sorry for him, but despite his cruelty, he is still one of the 13 generals of the demon army. If our master takes out his anger on him for the benefit of mankind, I'm afraid our army will understand. Then it turns out those people died in vain. Well, of course, this is a war. Why are you constantly hovering over me? The prince completely lost his memory and does not remember what kind of light is above his eye. To be honest, I can't really consider life. I'm just a passive skill, one of the highest skills in purgatory. In the whole world, only you possessing me, I have a very strong energy. Yes, my lord, everything you see above the heads of others, all these numbers, all these signs, it's all thanks to me. It turns out this one is the same as what I once had. If you can see, my heart is different from what it used to be. I became much kinder. My servant, can you leave me? I want to be alone. Mister, what are you talking about? I didn't disappear. This means that you are still my former master. Do you have any idea how many people want to get me and use me before it's too late? Mister, you must cherish me. Well, it doesn't matter who I am. You will stay by my side. We were originally born as one. You die and I die. I got it. I heard you, my servant. I first came to this world and it is full of uncertainty. But if I can find at least one honest partner, then I can relax a little. And then the prince had pleasant memories. His woman asked, "Are you back already? Can you help me with my lessons?" The owner does not understand he needs to do something and go back. Oh, Lord, why are you saying such strange things today? Until I understand at least a little of what is happening, I will not be able to do anything. I will continue to play along. Here the prince enters the huge hall of the great kingdom, sees mortal people who are on their knees and await their fate. You just look at them. And these are the same heroes who gave us battle while you stormed our city. You all did a very good job. Well, how could you even think when they attacked our city, so that the children now kneel before me? Can you shut up? What the hell are you talking about? Your city has already been destroyed. If you want to execute us, you can execute us. You are still the heroes of the divine city. Our squad of demons also needs human resources, which means that anyone who wishes to join our squad there and save their lives. What are you saying, boss? Yes, who wants to join your response to demons is better than execution if you so desire. Stop spouting this nonsense. I want to join Father. I would have been able to fix my life, and dying will not fix anything. What the hell are you wearing? Don't you dare call me father. My God, what do I see in front of me? The relationship between father and son is so touching. But how did you manage to become such a father who actually drags his son with him to the grave? Why are you telling me this? You do not understand anything. I am very sorry. When our city was destroyed, I didn't kill you. Guard someone release the son and the rest who do not want to surrender to be executed. Yes, my lord, wait a second. His Majesty Curtis sends so many important captives only in the presence of Majesty the Demon Lord Petty. On what contact with this psycho? What do you say the guard once called me as you would expect a petty brat from the Demon Lord squad that costs us humanity want to fight? I am warning you for the last time. Either you will laugh at the person, or let's fight. Today we will attack with large dragons the armies of the elves in order to clear the way and kill your majesty. He personally appointed me commander-in-chief. Do you doubt my abilities, puppy? I can't believe how you've been appointed commander-in-chief now we've already won the war. Your powers. You are no longer the chief commander, bordering on the fact that you, like me, are just one of the generals in the Demon Lord's army. If you want to do something that is not in your power, then first you have to deal with me. Are you carrying something? Some madman who wants to take his life? All our warriors, the entire army, have already noticed that this elf shields the captives and acts against the order of our general, as if he were in charge here. Commander, I'll teach you a lesson. Get ready for the big fight. Elven fire will bend you. I will strike. This jerk really wants to kill me? Then I will not give in to her. I will give him a fight. I will fight to the last. What to do here? I don't understand. At this time, the prince comes in and sees how the elf and the little boy begin to fight. What are you doing here? What the hell are you doing? His Majesty, excuse us for acting like this. This is just child's play. All the warriors knelt before the sight of our Grand Duke. Good afternoon, Your Majesty. At this time, the captives shout at the prince that he is a freak. It feels like all the people are not very nice to me, says His Majesty. Why did he come here? At this time, the prince begins to remember that this is the same person who before that, instead of me, he was ordered to such a city, and this entailed a mass death of people. And if you look at it, you can feel some inexplicable anxiety, an ever-raging flame. What it is, what he really is, the spirit in the eye answers. He is one of the 13 generals of the demon army and is also the lord of the elves. He is an elf, he is very strong, and he has the right to command the army, so he is special. But how can he obey me or not? At this time, the elf kneels before the prince. When he tells me to get up, you don't have to worry about my business. The prince turns his back on the elf and begins to speak. Keep on kneeling. Everyone still does not understand that the prince is a completely different person in his guise. How exciting it is. I don't understand how they haven't recognized me yet. The guard laughs. Don't hit. What the hell are you doing? Why are you carrying this man? I can't help it. It's His Majesty Lord. If you don't have to ask, then don't ask. Cassandra, someday the day will come I'll rip your tongue out. My subordinates seem to be afraid of him too. Definitely a representative of true strength. He can only be given 3 points. All wars are on their knees. This little boy is one of 13, but he has no authority to command. He is just a human child that you adopted during the war. He is full of gratitude to you. He is very grateful to you. He has different loyalty, courage, and strength. The great thug, whom everyone used to call an Eon. The most daring of the spider warriors, 13 generals in charge of the 5th group on this earth. He is the most powerful earth monster. So now I've been familiar with their positions. I have an idea of who is who. You might think that there are only 13 generals, and what else are there? For example, how this clown in the distance is the illusionist. One of 13 generals. Controls the 7th group of the Demon Lord's army. Can foresee a dream that belongs to the mind system. Among the 13 generals, he is the most mysterious. If you look up, you will see the #1 combat insect, the most powerful warrior, and over the past 1,000 years who has been subordinate to you for many, many centuries. One of the 13 generals is the head of the 6th group. It turns out that his intelligence is not high, but the lethal force is truly strong. If you look to the left, you will see some incomprehensible old man. This is the oldest demon lord. He is with His Majesty from the very moment the army was created. He is the head of the 3rd group. Great authority, combat capability, is not under the authority of the Lord of the Elves. We also have Medina, the head of the 10th group. She is too big, so she lives outside the city. This is that huge monster that you saw just recently. The god of fire, the head of the 8th group, whom you instructed today, is still undergoing treatment. Elder, can you come up to me what happened is all His Majesty? I don't understand his intentions myself. Old me is not very comfortable to follow His Majesty. Could you help me to support him once the child that His Majesty brought? Now, my lord, you see a huge chair. This chair is the throne of the patriarch and the tone during important gatherings. But now he brings you, your Majesty, to pass judgment on the patriarch. There is no time to think about it. And so we say it, Lord, at the same time in our thoughts, probably, the Emperor experiences a similar feeling. At this time, the elves have bad thoughts, and some strange ray appears behind him. He flies right in the prince, threats of the first degree on him. But his courageous servant helps to repel the blow, and the arrow passes by our prince. Thus ends the 4th chapter of the manga, I'm a Not Devil. If you are still interested, you can subscribe and like. Thank you. I Am a Not Devil, Part 5. Enjoy listening. Suddenly our prince has some kind of strange arrow flying out of nowhere. The prince falls out of his chair and is in comprehension. The guards are surprised what it could be. The prince lying on the floor does not understand that this is happening. Your Majesty, are you all right? Have you been hurt? Who the hell could it be? Is it really the murderers of our prince? He went in that direction. Let's attack him. There is a huge explosion outside the city. This battle among all the warriors went on for a very long time, and the killers are die-hard. With what force was this arrow fired? The wrist still hurts. Probably it was an archer of the highest class. The fool did not think of being a finger. Moved without orders. I'll probably go help our warriors. No servants are needed. You perfectly protect our prince. Stay there. We can't take any more chances. Leave the killer to me. I'll deal with him quickly. The domineering warrior made a huge jump and flew towards the killer. Prince gently understanding. He looks at it from the side and does not understand what is happening. The ruler with wings grabbed 2 copper bastards. We are the lord of the killers and captured. Here they are. Look at these scoundrels. We are lord. What the hell, release me, winged monster. At this time the prisoners are shouting to the woman who was captured. Why are you back, idiot? Your Majesty must have appropriated my merits. It was I who found them and liquidated them. You say something like that, little kid. Look at you. If I hadn't arrived, you wouldn't be standing here right now. What the hell are you doing? This is complete nonsense. So, okay, His Majesty will now judge you who these 2 are. At this time, the winged ones, without throwing them on the floor in front of His Majesty the idiot, Dolores appears in front of them. The holy deity of the city is a cutie. What a beautiful Dolores she is. Idiot. How dare you seduce our king, our prince? I did not do anything. You say something like that. What are you talking about as an idiot, the best man in the world? You want to say it's not brazen and naked seduction, then you understand everything. So what are you pretending to be? What are you talking about? I do not want to discuss such topics with you. This is not normal. Let me show you my strength, then His Majesty will immediately love me. Enough, I'm telling you. I'll settle this issue. Yes, we are the Lord. Today we captured the divine city. We all did a great job. What are you saying, Your Majesty? What to do with these prisoners? Thank you, my lord. Thank you, Word said. I don't understand, it was a good speech. Why was he so surprised at once? So that's why, Your Majesty, you talk so strangely? In what place is Your Majesty strange? Previously, when you announced the training camp, you only swore and blamed everyone and praised us very little. But thank you, today this happened for the first time. It's just incredible. Your thoughts, they are simply unbelievable. Past. I was such a tyrant, was I such a guard? In that case, hold this meeting in my place, I in your place. But how is it possible? Are you not a military advisor? It's time to start practicing. Today's meeting dedicated to our victory will be held by a guard instead of me. What the hell are you doing, our overlord? You should be giving orders, not ours. Guard. At this time the guard says, Dear commanders, our prince has just praised all of us. I hope that you will all be grateful for the services rendered, and continue to serve for the benefit of the army of the Prince of Darkness. How beautifully you say, our guard. The one who is best acquainted with this matter is released. But my commander, before we start celebrating victory in our army, there are 3 important issues to consider. First, what shall we do with our captives whom we have captured in this city? Secondly, What should we do with the ancient books of this city? In this library are quite old, which deserve respect. Flies around the city and burns everything in its path for our army, which at the moment what to do? Thank you, your majesty, for being so kind to me. However, I beg you to consider all these matters in person. Good guard. How do you say? How dare the guard shift all his responsibility onto me? Well, dear commander, in that case, now I ask all of you to comment on how to resolve these problems. Let's be Democrats for a bit. What do you say, Prince? What Democrats? Do you have to solve these problems and they require discussion? At this time, the elf says, the human mouth is our eternal enemy, and not all the time she joined our homes, our ancestors, our lands, their troops must be destroyed. I understand you. But what about the rest of the people? The rest do not exist. The entire human race must be destroyed. It's understandable to everyone. I have already said that we have a democratic discussion, whether it is clear to everyone or not. In any case, everyone is obliged to speak out. I dare not contradict you, says Elf. I feel that discussion is unnecessary. Everyone already clearly knows that human kinship has always humiliated us. Since your majesty wishes everyone to express their opinion without reluctance, in that case, let each commander share his thoughts on how to deal with a person. Because I was ordered, this does not mean at all that I like people. The clown also wants to express his opinion. When people took our city prisoner, they did not leave anyone alive. All people must be executed. Not bad. It will be easiest to cut them off. Such an execution is worth seeing. I unfortunately refuse. As the servant says so, his majesty will say so. So I will do it if only he is happy. Servant. You don't seem to care about the future of our army at all. I am the head of His Highness's personal security team. I only care about his life, and everything else does not interest me. I belong to the human race, but I hate it with all my soul. Therefore, I also ask your being to punish the prisoners. The guard tells your majesty there will always be a bitter enmity between our army and the human race. So, your highness, your decision will be. I don't understand why he looks at me like that. My position is already clear. They do not understand my face. I greatly underestimated the extent of the hatred between the forces of darkness and humans. At this time, the elf speaks. Your highness, you listen to the opinion of the present. Why do you doubt? Let's give orders to carry them out. The son of this prisoner turned to us to receive our protection. In that case, let's make him our army slave. Why does your community approve of this? In any case, all these people are not matchmakers or brothers to me. In my position, there is no reason to object. I don't really know anything about this world. Save this world. There's no need to joke like that. Then let's execute them. Yes, we are the master. You are a traitor, prince. At this time, the guards cut off the chains, and the same execution takes place. Everyone is in a panic. Everyone is terrified. How could this happen? The prince turns away from a single elf, asks what happened, that you are a community. When you saw the execution of these people, you woke up with sympathy. Am I carrying something like this? I just have a headache. I heard that the fire god said today that your highness punished him with a high-class demon. But why? The fighting skills of the fire god are certainly high, but using such a technique is a waste of strength. This subject is personally a guard of the Holy One, although his power is comparable to the power of 13 evil spirits. However, your majesty, how could you not dodge the only arrow that flew at you, yet this human child? Your majesty not only saved him, but even brought him to the victory celebration meeting. What are you doing? What is happening to you? Add to that his strange behavior during the battle. Doesn't it seem to you all that His Majesty is behaving very unusually today? Is it possible that the environment that Seraphim used during the battle somehow influenced the personality of His Majesty? The prince sharply panicked and began to think about the bad. Elf, weapons of eternal tears, are you carrying something with me? Do you still doubt my status? What meanness? No, my lord. I believe that all this does not at all prove that you are the Prince of Darkness. What are you saying then? Very simply block my phantom flame. Elf, you're an idiot. Prince will never reflect back to him aroused. You couldn't hold him before either. What's the matter today? What are you trying to hide? The fiery god says, why worry about him so much? He is still our prince. Or should His Majesty the Ghost Flames be a mere trifle? Today is really strange acting, but I believe that you must prove your status. Keep your majesty. At this time, the prince asks the helper of the fire, What kind of thing is this? The ghostly flame is the most powerful combat technique of the elves. The fire barrier will not cope with it now. Judging by the state of your opponent, the barrier will be destroyed immediately. What kind of jokes is this, Curtis? Was he really just waiting for an opportunity to kill me? Damn, he calculated everything. I start to attack them. There is a huge explosion and everything is sent to the prince. Misunderstanding? Some kind of firewoman appears who protects the prince. You do. This is not for the sake of verification. You doing it for the sake of killing. Miranda appears, the chief commander of the army of evil spirits, magic level 9. This is the 5th part ends. Thank you all for listening. If you liked, like and subscribe. I am a not devil. Part 7. The chapter begins with the computer showing an incomprehensible picture that cannot be described. At this time, the mother knocks on the door and comes to her son and asks, "What are you doing such a late time?" The boy began to worry and said, "I don't do anything like that to my mother. Sorry, I'll go to bed." He had the same thoughts in his memories that he had ever remembered looking at high school students. I'm just a high school student. Now I'm at the age when interest in the female body is at its peak, so when there is a girl with such a figure in front of me, I just can't stand in front of him. What should I do? Your Majesty, why did your nose bleed? It doesn't matter if the servants themselves are probably just a bit dry here. My God, Your Majesty, you are so beautiful today. Oh no. At this time, the thought of the wonderful feeling of this breast appears in my head. Lord, you are so beautiful today. Forget what others think you're weird. Let's just relax. It's their opinion. I think His Majesty is just like that today. This gives me the opportunity to protect His Majesty. Why is she licking? Is Cassandra so in love with me? A true demon fan? Your Majesty don't like me? What are you saying? Nothing like that. You're very beautiful. If you look at the whole situation, the previous owner probably would have done this to her right there too. It's as simple as that, but I still can't. But I must not be exposed. Cassandra, my favor. I'm a little tired during the siege, so do it yourself, so it shouldn't get caught. We obey the Lord. She throws prices at the prince and begins to kiss. At this time there is a knock on the door. The prince will find time to talk. Behind the door stands Miranda and waits for the prince to open the door for her. This voice cannot be that she came. Miranda stands outside the door and smirks a little. My prince, I beg you very much to spend less time standing as a girl. Why does she say that? Is she just jealous? I know I'll be careful. You need to watch your expressions. You need to behave naturally, which is now the hour. The prince simply does not understand what time it is. She dressed up so much and tells me everything is openly similar. Our relationship is not quite simple. It was cool. Thanks a lot. Of course, we have been arguing for several decades, but I will always agree with your decisions because the army, the demon lords, this is our common energy. I always hope that you can achieve your goal. This is a great thing that predecessors could achieve. If my prince helps me, then we will achieve brilliant success. But in the past, all you did was improve your skills, and improve them by impersonating a demon. My prince, you have great abilities you give yourself by nature. There are very few people in this world who could compete with you. Well, it's your strength, my prince, has also become a huge obstacle for the army. Although the demon army completely besieged the city and under its command a lot of strong subordinates gathered, but they all just caved in under your rule. Each of them has their own goals. You can't trust anyone but me. Together my forces and fears will help you achieve any desire. The army does not have a single goal, nor does it have the highest values or beliefs. It would seem that there are so many of them, but all of them are actually organized by a rabble of freaks. Especially after receiving the spiritual power of the 2 divine tears of the eternally raging flame, your body began to manifest more and more. Direct your power of demons against the onset of humanity. You know that this will turn out to be a huge mistake and pressure on our army. If you lose, the army of demons may disintegrate. I tell you all the time the army cannot operate only on its own forces, and the government of the state cannot be engaged only with the help of military power. But you never listen to me, and the resentment between us has been growing more and more for several thousand years. You know I can see you going further and further down the wrong path. How much despair I have. Miranda, my dear, your speech at the meeting is completely different from what it was before. What you said there still makes perfect sense, but it doesn't compare to the past. I'm very impressed. I'm just sorry. Miranda, dear, actually. I've been rethinking a lot recently. I want you to do me a favor for 3 days. Help me strengthen my subordinates in 3 days. What are you saying, my prince? Although I ordered the siege on the city to be stopped, however, there are those among them who are full of prejudice and can do something. There is also 1 child that I saved and 2 assassins. Help me protect them. Help me, Miranda. I want to spend 3 days and think carefully about my decision about the future of our army. I obey you, my lord. Miranda flies over the rooftops and the prince remains in meditation. How exhausted I am today. I don't even want to sleep. What are you talking about, sir? At this time, the voice of fire is heard. Are you really that weird today? Did I say something wrong? No, of course we are the mouth of demons. To be honest, very late. What are you talking about, my prince? About nothing. I'm sorry. Rando spirit of fire. Take me to one place. At this time, the voice of the servants is heard from the balcony. Where are you, your majesty? And what about hugs with me, servants? In 3 days, we will be able to continue what we started. Your majesty, to go out in public in such an outfit is not very good. I don't see anything wrong with that. By the way, why did you learn so much magic and why none of them work for me? Of course, His Majesty has memory problems. Rather teach me this magic. Your Majesty, could you forget that too? High magic usually contains 4 required items: spells, magical order, basic spiritual power, and mental sensations. With the exception of spiritual power, the other 3 must be stored in memory. How long will it take me to learn all this? But your mental sensations must be in memory. So with your talents, it will take you 2 years to relearn everything. So much. Why so much? It's much longer than I thought. Sir, what are you going to do here? The prince came to the city library of the Holy City in search of information. Rebuilding power. This is not a matter of 5 minutes, but you still need to control subordinates who are like wolves and the tiger. To deal with this, you will have to take up arms. An ever-burning flame. How long does the war between demons and humans last? If on average, then more than 100 years already. Is there any classic that has been published by people about this war? I have only 3 days to read all these books. Will you have time to finish, my lord? Since I wouldn't be so sure, but when it comes to books, I have more than enough confidence. Let it be the literature of a hostile camp, but the words of sacred books usually do not go beyond the scope, as well as economic power, political system, army, and demons and humanity. This is a good opportunity to become a demon lord. Before I can find my way out of here, I must make up my mind to this role as soon as possible. These books are simply gorgeous books, my first step towards understanding this world. 3 days have already passed. This is very interesting, but there is still so much incomprehensible and unread. At this time, the prince looks at the cross and sees some kind of warrior. This is the body of Seraphim. What is he doing there? This chapter ends. Thank you all for listening. Like and subscribe. I'm Not Devil. Part 8. Prince. He sees a huge cross, and Sebastian is on this cross. The prince asks, "Who did this?" "Your Highness, it was Curtis who went to the people. This is the same elf." He asks Your Majesty to decide what to do with the corpse. Again, this impudent elf. This person is the most important leader for humanity, and for the demons a great figure. How to get rid of its remnants? I don't want to do the job carelessly. For starters, let my servants get him down. Miranda, how are you? Change, Your Majesty. Right here, what should I do? Oh, sorry, sir, I'm so embarrassed. I want to ask you to go with me to one place. The prince changes his dressing gown and Miranda has great emotions. Is this a Creed prison? I just read about it in a book. It's strange why it's not like that at the top of the tower. Are our demons being judged here? What's happened? What happened to you? Miranda, you haven't said a word since we walked in. My God, how it stinks in here. Instead of going up the stairs and smelling bad, the further you go, the stronger and stronger the smell. Greetings, Your Majesty. The prince meets 2 fallen angels to open his mouth and says, Miranda, at this time the gate opens and sees just red without something here. What kind of place is this? He does not understand everything, only fallen demons and dead souls are visible. What a horror, the prince says, calmly. My lord is not to impersonate the first level. How bad it is for me. An unprecedented force attacks the prince. His legs begin to shake, and there is a terrible pain. I have a high threshold of souls. It is only necessary to inspire him. Excellent. Although there is no cold pressure on the back, I can resist Miranda's spiritual pressure. Commander, we can't stand it. The prince gives out unknown forces. The prince raises his head up and sees the fallen soldiers. I have nothing left. Help me. Miranda approaches this warrior and tries to save him. Commander, please, you must help me. Early puts her hand on his head and begins to pray. Unexplored magic is happening. People still believe that the blood of demons prolongs her life, even in human encyclopedias. This has already been refuted. However, in my world such things are also often found, and they also say that I won't dream of such a dream, having been in the personal place of this kind. No matter from which angle you look, all the anger of our humanity is manifested here. All these dead demonic souls, these are the abysses. It's just impossible to look at it. I don't want to stay here for a second. Miranda turns away from the princes and begins to shed tears, thinking about something. I have. They come from behind, puts her hands on her shoulders and tries to calm her down. And not your races, at the same time my people. So I share this responsibility with you. I also have a huge burden and responsibility hanging on me, as it does to you. Therefore, please do not bear this time alone. Tears. I want to destroy all of humanity. I will collect mountains of corpses and hang all the souls on the city gates. I want Divine City to appear. What is happening at this time? The elf says that our prince seems to have forbidden to pardon people, and now he has begun to mock them again. Previously, this was not our prince, although I also think so. But you are sure? I am absolutely sure. However, no one believes me. Before that, I wanted to expose him so that everyone would turn away from him, but now I decided to take him away by cunning. I do not believe this prince of ours. He may turn out to be more capable than the last one. Look into the sky. The prince flies open wings. The people of the Divine City and I have known the horror from your knowledge. But to the inhabitants of the Holy City, I see the fear in your looks. Someone prospers with me who against me will die here. Those who obey me, I will not touch. Today I have gathered you all here to give you a few points. First of all, I heard you believe that the blood of demons prolongs your life. In addition, the greater the threshold of rain, the higher the nutritional value of his blood. The prince bites his finger and shows all the inhabitants. Here is my blood. It is the most nutritious. Who wants to drink? At this time, the prince shows his finger and asks who wants to drink, who wants to extend his life. Miranda, she also pierces her finger at this time and offers these people. These people who have fun studied my citizens of the holy prison. Do you want long life? Asked the prince. I can give you this opportunity, and put my flesh directly into the mouth of this fallen warrior. Restraining himself from swallowing is useless. Even if just holding a high threshold of souls in the mouth of an ordinary person cannot withstand her spiritual power, he cannot then, in order to prolong his life, he simply studies you and immediately becomes an ugly corpse. At this time, the prince showed all free residents that they do not need to endure pain. Everything needs to be put in its place. Thank you all for listening. I tried very hard on the episode, so I really ask you to like and subscribe. Hugs, everyone.